All right, guys, this is another Six Pack Dad podcast. We have Greg Johnson with us, one of our more successful clients. A lot of energy with Greg. He has a lot going on, a great backstory in fitness, and we just want to get to know him a little bit better. So, Greg, welcome.
Thank you.
And
good to be here, Jeffrey.
Thank you. Thank you. Why don't you start by just telling us a little bit about it? Who are you? Who is Greg Johnson?
Wow. Well, it depends on whether you ask my wife or whether you ask, some of my buddies. But incidentally, I have been married to this woman for 38 years, right?
That's awesome.
So that's a pretty cool thing in today's world. She doesn't hate me that badly. But I am, first of all, a father of 4 children that are no longer living here. They're all grown. And I have 6 grandchildren. So I can officially say I have more grandchildren than I have children, which is kind of cool.
Yeah.
I'm the CEO of a cybersecurity company, as you can see here on the screen. We do expert penetration testing at Web Check Security, where we hack ethically into web applications and infrastructure. And we do a lot of high-end consulting where we're doing corporate cyber governance and assessments and alignment and those kinds of things. I also sing for this little world famous choir called the Tabernacle Choir on Temple Square. You may have heard of it.
We've heard of it.
I think most people know what that is, and that takes a lot of my time during the week. So between that and grandchildren and all of life's other things, Jeffrey, you're even more busy than I am. But that's a little bit about me.
Well, and I've actually seen you on TV, so you're world famous now as well. So I guess you in the choir singing, and I had my whole family watching and telling them, I know this guy on TV. I know a guy on TV.
Yeah, it's funny. I've been to the gym this week, and people come up and say, "Hey, I saw you on this program or that program," and it's kind of fun.
Yeah, it is. It's fun to be recognized a little bit. So with all that going on in your life, fitness background, you're a big guy, and you carry a good amount of muscle mass, and you throw a lot of weight around the gym. You're not afraid to record and video a lot of the stuff that you're doing in the gym, which is super helpful. What has been your athletic and fitness background from, where did weights become part of your life? High school, college?
Well, that's an interesting question. I'm one of those silly guys that, vanity was always kind of a part of it. I did some sports in high school, but really I was more of a musical talent. And I sang and I played the trombone in a jazz band. I played the guitar in a rock band. And I played football until my sophomore year. But for my frame, my knees are not great, right? So I got injured a lot, and I dropped it probably my junior year. Didn't do much working out though. Back in the early 80s and late 70s, the physiological fitness knowledge wasn't what it was today. The coach would say, just go in and do some leg extensions, boy.
Yeah,
and of course you know that functional training, using body weight and doing squats properly and those kinds of things, mechanics are very important. But nobody taught us how to do that. It wasn't, Jeffrey, until I went to university. I was at BYU and I had to have a physical education credit, and I took a weightlifting class and I got hooked. We learned how to do the basic stuff properly. I started to see these changes in my body. I started to get stronger. I went from and I've always been kind of broad-shouldered, and I was at least 6'1" when I graduated from high school. I'm now 6'2". But before I left to serve a 2-year mission for my church, I spent that whole year lifting and running, getting more fit than I'd ever been in my life. I went from 155 to 178 very quickly. And I thought, this is cool. I continued that through my missionary service. I'd get up early in the morning. I'd work out. I accumulated weights in my apartment. And then when I finished that service and came home and re-enrolled in the university and met my wife, it just became a habit, right? Mm-hmm. And I don't know how much you want me to go on here, but as you get older, things change, habits change. My story basically is this, Jeff, that here I was in my 50s, lifting and fairly fit, but in my genetics, in my family, type 1 or type 2 diabetes, well, some type 1 too, but type 2 diabetes, obesity, high blood pressure, cancer. Dude, I could blow up to 300 pounds in 2 months.
Yeah.
You just give me enough steak and Twinkies and
Right.
and I'll do it. My knees won't like it, but I can do it. Well, so pre-COVID, I was up to about 257 pounds, which is way too much for my knees and my frame. And in fact, I went in for a doctor's appointment and he said, dude, your blood pressure is 157/90. You're going to die. And he said, if things don't change, and my blood pressure's always been a little bit on the high side, but I realized, he's right. And, here I am going into my 60s. I've got to make some changes. And then, so anyway, COVID came, we were all quarantined to home. We live right on the edge of kind of a mountainous terrain. You've seen some of the videos I take.
Yeah.
And so I started going up every morning since it was in the spring. This was in about March. Every day I'd go hike up, and then I started running down, and I dropped to fairly close to where I am now. And I was feeling good about things. Still hadn't really changed my eating habits though. And then the unthinkable happened. Christmas of that year, 2020, I tore my quadricep.
That's awful.
And dude, it was stupid. I was running in a backyard. It was dark. We were giving a gift certificate to a widow, and we wanted to make our anonymous getaway. And I kind of hyperextended my knee. The patella slides over and kind of pulls the quad off. I mean, you don't even want to describe it. But so I go in to see the doctor, the osteopedic surgeon, and he says, you got to get in for surgery here. So a couple days later, I was getting in for surgery. Anyway, long story short, I'm sitting there. Here it is, close to Christmas time. My wife, my kids are coming home and waiting on me. I'm sitting there thinking, wow, this is really going to wreak havoc on my fitness. Here I was trying to change my behavior. And I thought, but it's not sustainable. I've been through so many diets, right? And maybe you can relate to this, Jeffrey. I want to show my six pack, and you'll diet down and you look good, but it's like, I can't sustain this eating anymore, and then you go through Christmas and you gain 10 pounds, but then it takes 6 months to take it off if you take it off.
Right.
So I got connected with, I found Tyson, right? And one of his videos, it might've been LinkedIn, because I'm a big LinkedIn participant. And I reached out and I thought, this is what I need. I need accountability. I need to change some things. And so before I go on, I'll just stop there. But that's what kind of changed the next phase of my life is committing to the six-pack dad tribe and the principles. And that's kind of what brought us to this point.
That's fantastic. And that's a very common story. That template that you just told is very common amongst a lot of the guys in the tribe. We've been athletic. We've done a lot of things. We've been successful in fitness, and then life hits us, work, jobs, injuries, sickness, all this stuff hits us. And then all of a sudden, here we are. And at my worst point, I don't even know how much I weighed, because I was afraid to weigh, but it was close to 300 pounds.
Wow.
And I'm 5'10".
Wow.
So that's after having, a serious weightlifting, bodybuilding through college and my early marriage. And then I find myself at 40 years old, almost, somewhere pushing 290 plus. And actually, I never weighed myself until after I had worked out for about 30 days, and I was down in the 270s. So I was afraid to weigh,
Wow.
And so a lot of guys come into the program and get a little frustrated in the beginning because they don't see these massive changes right away.
Right.
They start working out, they don't see these massive changes. And, what they don't realize is it took us a long time to get to the point where we needed help, or we recognized we needed help. We needed help before we knew we needed help. And it doesn't come off overnight. You know, it wasn't the bag of Doritos or the Oreos you ate last night that you woke up suddenly 300 pounds. That's not how it works. So it
Right.
doesn't come, so it doesn't come off that fast.
Right.
You know, it's like, you know, it must have been that last Oreo. I don't know what happened to me. So with that in mind, what do you find when you started this program was one of your biggest challenges to keep yourself motivated? Did you see success very quickly in the beginning, or was it a slow burn for you to this point?
You know, it's a combination of both, but let me go back and just share. So as I got into it, one of the things I realized, and for our listeners, I have been a National Academy of Sports Medicine certified trainer. I was pre-med at BYU, and then eventually I decided, hey, I like languages. I majored in Spanish translation with a minor in music. I have some musical talent, right? So you know, the point is, I had studied, and I had anatomy, I've had the physiology, and then the National Academy of Sports Medicine, and then lifting and reading Muscle and Fitness and Flex all those years, you know, like
Sure.
a lot of young guys do. So you learn a lot of stuff. Some of it's false, some of it's good, but most of it's good. You learn about the mechanics and the physiology of lifting and fitness and training and all kinds of things. But one thing I realized that was missing was accountability. I've mentioned before, and I realized that the tracking. I never lose weight if I don't track what I eat, right? Or I'd done the Body for Life, where you're using, you know, the size of your fist for carbs and meat, but you can really justify and overeat on that. I found that more scientifically, now that we have the smartphone era, right, which hasn't been here for that long, things like MyFitnessPal have become indispensable. So I'll come back to that. But also a thing I'd never tried before, Jeff, is intermittent fasting. And you know, in our Christian religion, we do fasting a lot, once a month, where we try to refrain from food and drink, you know, nutrition drink. So you're not taking in nutrition for 2 meals or 24 hours, right? And I always knew that felt good the next day. It was hard, but it felt good. And so I'd always kind of misinterpreted the intermittent fasting until I kind of read the research, and then listened to Tyson and his program he'd put together, and realized that, hey, this wouldn't be that hard. I just have to not eat after 8, get up in the morning, drink water, take my vitamins, maybe have an amino drink, low calorie, 10 or below. But I can do this thing. And pretty soon I realized, you know, you're so busy that lunch rolls around. Hey, I'm starving. Let's eat. Right. But your body has started to burn fat, and your body has started to reduce insulin resistance. That's been a huge thing for me, along with the tracking, because I've known a lot of the other principles for years. And then of course, the third thing was doing more HIIT training, changing the way I work out. You know, when the doctor sewed my muscle back onto my tendon and pulled it through the patella and said, okay, keep your legs straight for 3 months, right? I did go to the gym, but one of the things he said was, you know, as there's a common injury for old guys that are really strong, that have power lifted and done all that. Yeah. Your muscles remain stronger than your tendons, you know, for a long time. And he said, you should be doing more reps. So I do lift heavy still, but not all the time. Right. And I've changed it up to do more HIIT training, and sometimes no bodybuilding at all. Just, you've seen me do tire flips and push-ups and kettlebells, and, you know, I haven't videoed this, but I'll get on a balanced Bosu ball and do squats, which is not much resistance at all, but you're balancing, and, you know, so I've really changed things up. HIIT training's been good. Anyway, I'll pause there for a second.
Yeah, you brought up a lot of good points there. The different types of workout, changing those workouts, not doing bodybuilding all the time. It's not heavy all the time. And I think a lot of our guys, and we're getting younger guys into the program. You know, originally the program was designed for that middle-aged dad corporate guy that's busy and trying to figure out how to lean out and get fit. And we're getting a lot of age disparaging now in the program, which is awesome, because we have such a different perspective from some people and how they work out. But changing those workouts up, I found I had stages in my life, that I'm working out heavy in college, and not even worried about injury. And I'm not working out correctly, but I'm not getting hurt either.
Right.
And then slowly things start to change. You get a job, you graduate, you can't be in the gym 3 hours a day like you used to. And, so you change your fitness up a little bit that way. And then when I was heavy, when I started losing weight just by walking. That's how I started. I had a little app on my phone and I would walk and reduce my calories, and I started losing weight. And then I was able to run a 5K eventually. Mm-hmm. Then a friend of mine bought a bike and joined a triathlon club. So I did that. And I got into racing and triathlons, and I leaned out. I was down to under 200 pounds
right.
by 42 years old.
Wow.
And I felt great. So I lost almost 90 some odd pounds, 85 probably pounds, to get under 200. And I was racing and running and healthy and all this kind of stuff. And I forgot about, the underlying hypertension that I never paid any attention to. Mm-hmm. And then I was in the hospital for a week with my heart. I thought I had pneumonia or bronchitis. I was on the verge of having a heart attack. They put me in the hospital. So again, now you change again. You thought you were doing everything right. There's another stage. And a lot of these guys that and I like that you brought up those different aspects, because a lot of guys watching this video think there's only one way. I've got to do this slow burning cardio on the treadmill forever. It's not sustainable. I don't like it. I'm not going to do it. And we are showing a variety of different facets and perspectives on how to get that fitness in at different ages and different levels of fitness, and how to pivot from injury. You talk about your quad being torn. You still were at the gym doing something. It wasn't sitting on the couch waiting for your leg to heal. You got to the gym and did something. The activity is important. And I think that's really important to emphasize, that even during injury, we can still be active as we recover,
yes,
according to what your doctor's going to allow you to do, and safety and all that. But that was fantastic. I like that you brought that up, because at our stage, we get a lot of guys, I'm going to be 52 this year. We have a lot of guys that are older than that. We have some guys in their 40s and 30s. Everybody has a different level. So when we come at them with HIIT training, Ron Paul was a client of mine, and he went at this thing 110%. No matter what I asked him to do, he did it. There was never I can't do that. My knee hurts, my back hurts. I'm traveling too much. If he was in Italy, he was working out and videotaping, whatever he was doing, and he figured out how to pack a suitcase full of protein powders and get it through TSA. It didn't look like he was a drug mule. All these things that a lot of guys give up on, because these things feel insurmountable a little bit. Let's talk a little bit about nutrition and how you balance it. You're a busy guy. How do you balance that nutrition and those macros throughout the day? How do you map that out, or do you?
I do. And I'm going to go back to what you said, Jeffrey, that, it's not the Dorito you ate last night, or the cookie, or the ice cream. It is a lot of stuff over a long period of time.
Yes.
that put the 300 pounds on you, and the, almost 300 pounds on me. I've been heavier than 257. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
And I was still deadlifting, and, and thought I was so, strong and healthy. But the reality is you're doing stuff to your body that not what. What I realize is, in North America, and if you go back and, if you read the old Atkins books, he had it dialed in. People thought Atkins was all about fat and bad stuff, but it's not. It's about vegetables. It was just about the fact that when you eat, if you go back to the Industrial Revolution, flour, white flour, bleached flours, and sugar, they weren't available as broadly as it started to be in the 1940s. And from that point on, you chart the trajectory of American obesity, and the similar trajectory in heart disease, atherosclerosis, arteriosclerosis, cancers, type 2 diabetes, and yada, 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 all of the maladies. And it's because of diet.
Yes.
And so when we're young guys with the access to all the food and the carbs and the hamburgers and, Carl's Jr. and, whatever, you basically, you don't know what you don't know until you know it. And that's the biggest thing. So I approach it from, and I'm not always the best at it, but even if I'm going to say, you know what, I'm going to go have a Carl's Jr., I
Right.
log it, baby. I want to know if I'm going 300 calories over today, then I know that tomorrow I've got to dial it in. And the thing that's interesting about, Tyson's approach, and I sound like I'm a commercial, but I think it's a great program because you're not kind of skewing towards keto or paleo.
Right.
But what happens, Jeffrey, and you know this now, you've become an expert on it, is as you try to hit that protein macro, you know that you can't do it and stay under or at your calories and eat a lot of carbs too. It just doesn't work that way.
Mm-hmm.
And so, if it's getting dinner time and you've got 53 grams of protein left to hit, right? You can't do it necessarily eating fried chicken.
Right.
Because the chicken's good, but all of that breading and oil, it's going to add the calories. You've got to very carefully, there are some nights when I'll say, okay, I'm going to cook 7 eggs and have a salad.
Yeah.
And I'm not worried about nature's natural fats if my carbs are low, because research has shown that a low carb diet will bring down blood pressure and cholesterols and that kind of thing. But it's interesting how that naturally balances. Let me give you another example. Today, I went to lunch with a buddy I haven't seen for a while. We wanted to catch up, tell each other about our business endeavors. So we went to Mexican, and I thought, oh boy, he wants to go to Mexican. What can I have? And the Mexican diet is fraught with carbs. So I ordered fajitas without tortillas.
Okay.
And for many people on this call, they're going, heresy, that would be yucky. It actually was delicious. This place was good. So I ordered the beef. I wanted a lot of protein today, but I sat there and I ate the beef, the sauteed peppers and onions. They had some carrots, but no rice, no beans, nor tortillas. It had some cheese on it, and I poured salsa on it. I had a few chips, but I logged it all, right?
Yeah.
And it's awesome because I'm feeling great. I'm maintaining my weight, and I'm gradually trying to bring it down and shed the body fat that plagues me. Right now and when we started this, I was probably closer to 30%. I didn't want to admit it, but I was. Right. And now I'm getting down to 20%. And I'd like to get back down to about 11, 12, I think is when I've looked my best. And that's not easy, but it's sustainable if it's done right.
Right.
So again, back to your original question, how do I approach that? I approach it knowing that it's important to hit that protein macro. It's important to try and have a good quantity of vegetables during the day. And then the other thing I have to do, you mentioned Ron Paul. I travel quite a bit now as well. And protein bars, man,
yeah,
they're easy. I love the Quest bars. They're dense. You'll get constipated if you don't drink a lot of water.
Yes.
But I'll take the Quest, cookie dough bars or whatever, because at 200 calories, you get 21 grams of protein.
Yes.
And sometimes other types of keto bars, I buy different ones so that I'm not, shoving the same dense stuff through my system. And some of them have more fiber than others. And there's the taste factor too, but it's a savior because, otherwise I'd probably be 40 grams of protein short every day. And
yeah,
so bars are good. I'm also gonna, I've started to eat more shakes than I have recently. I used to do one in the morning, but now that I'm doing intermittent fasting, I don't do the protein shakes as much. But I'm going to come back to that. A recent tweak to my diet is that I've kind of hit a plateau after a year and a half. And so I've been more analytical about my protein. And now I want to raise it to, instead of the MyFitnessPal recommendation, I'm going up at my body weight of 200 pounds. I should be getting, I'm going to say 0.8 grams of protein per pound of body weight. That puts me about in between 150 to 173, depending on my activity level. Today, I played 3 racquetball games, pretty intense games. And so today I hit 170 grams of protein.
Okay.
And that means very little carbs today.
Right.
So anyway.
No, that's great because there's a couple scenarios there on how you're adjusting your macros to your activity level, or just going out to lunch with a buddy, or a business lunch and looking at, hey, we're going to Mexican. You're thinking about what can I do, and stripping that down where a lot of people are like, okay, I'm going to count this as my leptin reset day meal because I don't know what to do with this Mexican meal that we're eating here. Or Chipotle. I get a lot of guys that love Chipotle. It's healthy in theory, better than going to McDonald's or Burger King. I'd have you pick Chipotle, but the amount of sodium, that micronutrient that shows up in something like Chipotle and just your regular Mexican food is astronomical.
It is.
And when we forget about the sodium aspect because we're focusing on carbs and protein, and I coach all my guys to not even worry about the fat. If you can get to your protein levels and keep your carbs down low, the fat takes care of itself.
It pretty much does.
It does.
It does.
So I rarely am I talking to my guys about, hey, you got too much fat. That macro's got to come down. And, if someone's eating a lot of brisket, they got a meal with a lot of brisket or prime rib or something, the fat grams tend to be higher, but I don't worry about it for the guys because they're getting the protein that's balancing out. The risk reward to eating that is greater. The reward is greater than the amount of, getting that fat in one meal or two meals.
It is. And the thing that's interesting, Jeffrey, is you don't have to cut tortillas out completely.
Mm-mm.
If you want to have a tortilla, then have a tortilla, but log it.
Yes.
Because here's the reality. You forget that one tortilla is 100 to 150 calories.
Yes.
That's huge.
Yes.
Because you get to the end of the day and it's like you said, it's the small things over time. It's not the one Oreo, but it's blowing over your calories consistently day after day after day. So if you're going to have a tortilla, log it. Look, I love popcorn. I love theater, bad saturated butter popcorn in the movies with a Coke Zero, right? And I don't go to the movies every weekend, but if I do, and if I'm going to have popcorn, which I don't always do, but let's say 8 to 9 times out of 10, I do, I leave room in my diet and I start early that day. Let's say it's a Friday work day. At lunch, I'll say, okay, Gregory, you're going to the show tonight and you're going to have a popcorn. So all you're going to have for lunch is, I may scramble some eggs, or I may have a spinach salad. If I'm going out to lunch, I'll have a salmon salad, right? With no rice, low fruit, that kind of thing. Salmon is so high protein, so dense, good oils, much less calories than beef. So you see what I'm doing? I'm trying to pack and cram in the density and the protein so that when I get to that theater, and popcorn does have some protein in it, it has 2-3 grams, So if I eat a regular, little cup of saturated popcorn, I know I'm going to get 200 to 300 calories, but I plan for it. I log it. I know where I'm at, right? So things have changed quite dramatically, and I'm very happy to continue doing that through my 70s and until I die, because people don't know what they don't know.
No, you're right.
They think they're eating healthy, but I'll tell you what, you pop a couple nuts, especially if you're not on an exercise regimen, it all adds up.
It does.
Right? It all adds up. And it's shocking when you start logging and you do it for more than a month. You start to realize that, oh my gosh, all my life I've been just shoving stuff in my mouth and not worrying about whether or not I was getting proper nutrition.
No, it's absolutely. And that's the biggest surprise to a lot of these guys is that the first week with any of my clients, I say, you choose what you think is healthy and log it. And then we're going to talk about it at the end of the week. And looking at, you go back through and say, okay, this is healthy stuff, but here's how it breaks down macro and micronutrient wise, and why the needle doesn't move for you, despite the fact that you're not eating a lot of calories, because all your calories came from carbs and sodium. So your body's going to respond to that in a certain way. Hydration is critical. We haven't talked about that, but getting that hydration in, you talked about the protein bars, right? Yeah, me too. Eating those protein bars and getting enough hydration to balance out fiber and the other toxins and sodiums that we put into our body that just naturally come from what we eat all day, and flushing that out rather than having it park itself somewhere in your system and starts to impede the process of the fat loss. When we talk about, Tyson and I talk about, the metabolism's like a freight train. It's slow. We got to get it going. And once it's going, we have to keep it motivated and moving all the time, because it impedes you to have to stop at every single railroad crossing with that metabolism. If we can roll through all these things, even if it slows, but it's moving, you're making progress.
Yeah.
You look in the tracker, I only lost a pound this week. I only lost a half a pound this week, but you're moving still. It's not stopped. And that's the key. And the hardest thing I've found in getting guys to just stay, consistent in what they're doing, to have that metabolism moving. What do you think, as you started this program, what surprised you the most out of how this was working?
Well, I can tell you what surprised me the most, and I guess mentally I knew this would happen, but the intermittent fasting was huge. And you could probably relate to this, Jeffrey. We're so much alike, in all of our yo-yoing, since college.
Right.
Losing that weight has always been problematic. Having a weekend, like, let me give you an example. I would often on a Saturday, since we've lived in this house for 20 years, right by the mountain, hike or run up the mountainside, depending on my weight and fitness level.
Sure.
I could always tell on a Saturday morning if I ate bad. We had a date, and I ate all the fries at In-N-Out, and had pizza and blah, blah, blah. You pay for it in that workout the next day. I'll tell you, with intermittent fasting, that doesn't happen. It's a different ball game. I feel like my system is lighter. I feel like every day is almost a new flush, a new start. You get up in the morning, you drink water. I have a ritual. I like the Bio 35 vitamins because they're liquid and you can digest them, or at least I can, on an empty stomach. So I take 3 vitamins a day, 2 in the morning, and a couple of the hyaluronic MSM, pills, the shift move free stuff, because I'm an old guy. And then when I get home at night, I'll take the rest of my vitamins. But I take that, and I'll take an amino acid drink. Sometimes I'll have an energy drink with aminos in, but that's it until noon. And that has really cleaned my system out. It's just that was the biggest surprise, is how quickly that works. And then over time, even if you plateau, the point is you're maintaining, because you're doing that thing, and it's powerful.
Yeah, I think that a lot of guys are surprised that. So, agree or disagree? Have you found that your taste buds have changed over time, sensitive to food? Like, for me, it was hot dogs right away. The amount of sodium I can taste in a hot dog is like I'm biting into a salt lick, and I could eat. I used to be able to eat. I used to love hot dogs, but now I'll still eat a hot dog. If I go to the ball game, I'll do something. We'll grill every once in a while, but I'm very sensitive to sodium in food products now, and I can notice it very, very heavily. So I rarely salt or season almost anything I eat anymore, because some of that stuff is very powerful to me, though.
Yeah, for me, it's been more heavy desserts and sugars. I still will enjoy them, but I've opted, if I'm going to have ice cream, and again, I plan for it, right? I've started buying the high protein Halo.
Okay.
Because it helps me achieve my macros, and it's lower calorie, and some of them are dairy free, and not that dairy is bad, but it's high calorie and it's higher fat. So
a lot of natural sugar in dairy too.
Yeah, well, so it's there's a trade-off. One thing that we need to talk about on this, that most of our new folks don't realize, is the insulin factor, and that insulin stimulates your body to retain weight. And so what happens is you have if you have a lot of sugar that causes your insulin to spike, right? And then it comes down, but then you eat more sugar and it spikes. Every time you have that spike, the research that I've done suggests that that contributes to weight retention and or weight gain. The idea is in your diet to try to maintain more of a nominal insulin flow, which is why berries are so good. They're low glycemic. Not that fruits are bad, but avoiding those, that's why white flour, it's just a flash in the pan. There's no nutrients and your insulin spikes. Plain straight on sugar. I mean, if you're going to drink a Coke, you're probably better off risking the cancer and having the sucralose or the aspartame, because people don't realize how bad sugar is for their body. Again, Industrial Revolution, it became ubiquitous. Our bodies weren't designed to eat that much sugar. I mean, if you believe in evolution, the cavemen, our bodies were designed to eat rich, high density foods, to pick an apple off the tree and eat the apple with the fiber and have it slow the digestion and the uptake of the fructose.
Yes.
But not to drink apple juice with all the pulp removed and spike your insulin.
Yes.
So what I'm leading to here, one of my awesome guys that I'm coaching yesterday sent me a Marco Polo, and he's doing really well, by the way. He's off, he's seeing that quick weight loss where he started working out. He's starting doing some HIIT training, no big, lifting, just doing consistent small things. He started logging. He's seeing he's lost several pounds. Then he asked me a question about ice cream and all that stuff. And I said, that's great. You need to cheat once in a while. But the problem is, if you do it too often during the week, you're going to pay for the insulin spike. And so it's just something to be aware of, that the more flatline you can maintain that insulin spike, the better off you are.
And that's why a lot of my guys, I'll look at their MyFitnessPal and I see the apple juice and the orange juice or pineapple juice that they're throwing in their first meal, or if they have to have a breakfast because they're working out in the mornings. And I'll back some of that off. And it's the exact explanation that I'm giving to them is, listen, this is pure, you need the actual piece of fruit versus the drink. If you're going to have apple juice, you need to eat the apple. Because not that any of that is unhealthy, but it impedes the process of the fat loss.
Yep.
And that's the way your body responds to it. And in this process, these first 16 weeks, we want you to burn fat. So it's not that you can never have those things. It's just we can't have them right now, because you're going to have to really limit, the amount of fruit and fruit juice, because those things inhibit the body from being able to burn fat.
Yeah, they do. And I agree with you, Jeffrey. Have fruit once in a while. Eat an orange.
Yeah.
That fiber, not only does it clean out your large intestines, but it coats the lining of the stomach, and it slows the absorption and the breakdown of the fructose, so that instead of going after orange juice or apple juice, which I really don't drink a lot of that anymore, I'll just have fruit. If I'm going to have a shake, sometimes I'll throw a whole apple in the blender and just blend it, core and all.
Yeah.
And put in the protein powder and some ice. But yeah, that's fruit juice is kind of no bueno. Use the whole fruit.
Yeah. No, and that's a real education for a lot of guys to understand this. I've been taught this is this is part of a healthy diet. Well, overall, yes, but we're in a concentrated tunnel right now of trying to burn fat off your body, and there's a process to do that doesn't include certain things, the dairies and the fruits and that kind of stuff that we can put in sparingly, and then teach them to have a sustainable lifestyle. So
yeah. Now I'll warn you, we've got about, let's see, at 9 o'clock my time, I've got to jump on an onboarding call.
So we'll finish up right here. And you briefly alluded to you've been brought on as a coach. You've been very successful in the program. Tyson brought you on as a
Thank you.
coach and a well deserved addition to the team that we already had. It's the perspective and the fitness history that you have. All four of us have a very unique fitness background now to be able to attack this from four different perspectives. So I just think it's great that all of you, what you've talked about, your experience has brought you to be able to share that with the tribe and continue to make a difference in these guys' lives. And I can't tell you how much Tyson and I and Andrew, and we talked about it before you were a coach, what a motivating individual and the high energy that you bring to the tribe and just what it looks like to life in general is just fantastic. Because that's what makes people successful. And it can be infectious, and coaching with that enthusiasm can be infectious to these guys. And that's that intangible, I think, that you in particular bring. We can go through our macros and our tech stuff and all this stuff that we do, but you bring an element that you can't teach. So I want to thank you on behalf of the tribe for being part and accepting that role as a coach, because I think it's really going to bless a lot of guys' lives. And I know that we learn from you. I've learned from you. And it's just been a blessing to have you part of the team. And I can't thank you enough. And I'm just excited to finally be able to talk face to face.
Thank you, Jeffrey. It's, just one word about that is anybody can learn to react positively to any situation. I have an executive coach that I hire because you need coaches in all aspects of your life. And one of them is my business and my personal mentality. And one of the things he told me the other day, and you've heard this before, but basically you have about 7 seconds when you feel a reaction kind of welling in your chest to think differently. Otherwise, the chemicals, whether it's acetylcholine and the synaptic responses, that neural pathway, it'll be fixed, and it's going to take you off in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right? So similarly, we can change. We can do small and simple things that bring about great things over time. Darren Hardy of the Compound Effect gives a perfect example at the beginning of his book where he talks about, 3 guys, one who just starts eating a little bit better and eats about 200 less calories per day, and another guy who eats just 1 bowl of cereal extra per night, and another guy who does nothing. And at the end of 18 months, there's not a lot of difference, but at the end of 2 years, guy number 1, who's just done a little bit every day, has lost 60 pounds. Guy number 2, who just ate a little bit more every day, has gained 60 pounds. And now there's 120 pounds difference between them. And then the guy that did nothing gained 30 pounds.
Yeah.
And so little things over time can contribute to big things.
Absolutely. It's consistency and doing the small things every day, which really allows us to you screw up a day, you can reset the next day and start over. It's not the end of the world. This program is designed to do it that way. So thank you so much, Greg. Everybody, Greg Johnson, part of the Six Pack Dad Tribe, a successful member and client, and now a coach. This has been a great evening, Greg. I really appreciate it. And any parting words for the tribe?
Oh, I have to do my Arnold imitation. Yeah, everybody, don't be curly, man. Work out hard.
Fantastic, man. All righty, everybody. Greg Johnson, thank you so much. And I'm going to stop recording here.